Hello, my name is Alex Sofonia and I'm a filmmaker and cinematographer. I worked on many projects, from short films to documentaries to even travel videos. And the most important thing it comes to in filmmaking is cinematography. So in this class we are going to understand what makes a video cinematic, find the right tools for it, and also identify if our videos are cinematic. We are also going to go into a new space where we've never been before and try to create there some nice cinematic shots. Now let's talk about what makes a video cinematic. Well, it isn't a rule what makes a video cinematic, it is more like a feeling. Well, if you're watching a video you think, wow, that looks cinematic, maybe a film and so on, maybe some travel videos. But if you look at your own videos, you need to think, what could make my video cinematic? Well, you need to learn. It's a craft to make video cinematic. It's not rules. A specific rule to light up the subject, a specific rule for, I don't know, some other stuff. There isn't an actual rule when it comes to cinematography. It is a feeling. After some practice, after seeing some classes, or maybe after watching some movies, only then you can feel if a shot looks cinematic. But there are also some rules which help you at that. First, the main principle of cinematic is to create depth. And to create depth is best explained to create contrast. Contrast means not to take the contrast to the maximum. It means to create contrast into your camera, using background blur, using shadows, or maybe using camera movement. For background blur, it's really easy. You need just a lens and some distance between the background and the foreground and the subject. But if we come to lighting, it's a little bit more complicated. To create that nice shadows, it requires some big softboxes, which are a little bit expensive. But if you know to use the sun correctly, the sun or maybe the clouds will be the perfect softbox which you ever need. But about movement, it is a complete other story. You need to move your camera smoothly and precise to create some depth, because our world is 3D. We don't have just a 2D world. That's why we have two eyes, but the camera has only one. So if you're closing one eye, you will not see anymore that depth that you're feeling, to see the distance between you and something else. But the camera can feel something like that. So you need to show to the camera the 3D space. And how to show it better than to move the camera? By moving the camera, you create depth, because the foreground stays still, but the background will move and it will create the popular parallax effect. But let's go back to the main purpose of this video. Well, to see if your videos are cinematic is to gain some experience. If you don't have experience, you just look at your shots, you see, well, it is cinematic, it looks nice, or maybe it doesn't look nice. But how can you tell if it looks nice? The main purpose is to create depth, like I said previously. But if you already know some rules, how you can still see if you're making cinematic shots? Well, you respect all these rules and so on. But who can tell you if you're creating cinematic shots? Well, the best person for that is someone who doesn't know anything at all about filmmaking. And why do we ask this person? Well, because this person will see your video from a viewer side, not from a filmmaker side. If you're showing this to a filmmaker, it isn't a mistake, but the filmmaker would rate you, let's say, to add more background blur, maybe to move the camera more. Even you, before you start anything about filmmaking, you can see when you're watching some films, wow, this looks really nice. And this word nice means cinematic. And with your eye, you can check if your videos are cinematic. You don't need any expensive tools, maybe chat with filmmakers and so on, to find if your shots are cinematic. This isn't a mistake to chat with others, but if you're just building up a set, then you can just ask your eye. Maybe ask a friend to see if they like what you did. Not if you put the right lens onto your camera, if you light up your scene evenly, you add enough shadows and so on. Just ask them if it's nice. Now, before we start anything to go into a new room to make some cinematic shots just with the things we find in that room, first we need to think about the tools we need to film something like that. First, the most important is your eye and actually yourself, because your camera can tell you how your image looks like, but you can go around through the entire home with a camera in your hands to see where it looks nice. Your eye should be trained to see where it would look more nicer. And how to train your eye is to watch some movies, or maybe find some nice cinematic shots on YouTube, or maybe just create your own shots. After some experience, you will create your own way by creating cinematic shots. Every filmmaker has their own way of creating their films. And this is the nice part about filmmaking. Everyone can have their own way of telling the story, of lighting up the scene, of everything that makes a shot cinematic. But the main purpose is after some time to learn to see if a shot would look cinematic without to take your light, camera and so on to see if the shot really will look cinematic. Then the second tool we need is the sun. And this is really easy to find. Every window is like a portal to the sun. So you need to find a place where the window is positioned to the left or to the right of the subject. But about this we are going to talk in the next lesson. Then the second thing is, because the sun has only one position, and although it moves at different times and probably you need to have an entire shooting day, we need also something to guide the light. Sometimes we have white walls and these white walls reflect the light back. There is something you should also take with you, a black fabric. It could be just a black reflector, but it's enough just a black fabric. Well, what this black fabric does, absorbs all the light which should be reflected. But about this we are also going to talk later in this class. What you also need to take with you is a reflector. Sometimes you need more field light to spill the light from the sun in the entire room. Maybe if you have, let's say, a room full of furniture, then that furniture will not reflect the same way the sunlight as a white wall would do. So that's why a reflector is really good if you're just lighting up your subject with natural light. Then what you still need to have is to have some soft fabric. And this isn't something too fancy. It could be just paper. But in every filmmaking store or online shop you will find these fabrics which are used to soften the light. But to create just cinematic shots you need soft light. So that's why you also need a fabric that could soften the light. And the last and one of the most important is the camera, of course. But also about the camera you should think about the lens, if you zoom in, about the depth of field and so on. And the last thing, which is optionally, you could take a gimbal. 99% of every cinematic shot has movement, and this means to have smooth movement. If you have hard movement and really fast movement, then you can't really identify what happens in your scene. It will lose that nice cinematic feeling. The gimbal is a robot and it can do smooth motion, and you can control, if you want smooth motion, maybe some harder movement, the speed and everything. But because we are human, we can do so precise everything. So this means the gimbal will have some nicer shots. Just wrapped up the shoot and it's time to edit all these things together. But about this is a complete new class. If you have any further questions, please let me know. Have a great day.